Hello, this video is for the our stat absentee friends on Wednesday, October 7th. What we did is we added a couple things to our day 4 notes. So if you have your day 4 notes, you can get them ready to take notes on. However, the beginning part is review, so you may just enjoy the view of the review. What we learned the other day was that the normal curve can sometimes be described by this notation, n in parentheses 304, comma 8, and the whole thing can be defined with those two numbers. N tells the reader that you have a normal curve, and 304 is the mean, and after the comma is the standard deviation 8. The whole curve can be defined by putting these numbers in and using them. So 304 is the mean. It's at the highest peak. So I put 304 right there. Then I add 8 again and again to get the standard deviation, one standard deviation from the mean on the positive side, then 2, and then 3. It works in reverse on the other side, where I take 304 and subtract 8 again, and subtract 8 again, following the -1 standard deviation, -2 standard deviations, and -3 standard deviations from the mean. So the whole kit and caboodle is described by 304.8. Then we went on from there, and this is still all old information. Find the percent of the area less than 312. And to do that, we had to keep our eye on this little map that we came up with. If you recall, we had a percentage map, and you should see that on your day 3 or 4 notes. So all the percentages are listed just like we did in class. So using that percentage map, what percent of the area is less than 312? Let's see if you can figure it out. So you can pause this or figure it out quickly before I reveal the answer. Alright, the answer is, well, less than 312 is going to, I'll just kind of color it in up here. Here's 312. It appears on one of my standard deviations is 312, and I'm going to stripe everything else. So up to here. Whoops, I went over. The pencil's fighting me. Alright, so I don't mean to put in this little stripe. So everything less than 312 can be quickly found by realizing that this part over here is 50%. So everything left of this dark line is 50%. And then I look at my percentage map down here and see that this portion right here corresponds to the 34. So all I have to do is add the 50 and the 34, and you see that the answer is 84. Oops. I don't know what I just did. Sorry about that. 84%. Let's go ahead then and find the answer to this question. And again, we're in review mode. If you find anything totally unfamiliar or not in your notes, go ahead and add it, but otherwise just enjoy the view. Find percent between 312 and 328. So looking up here, 312 and 328 goes this way. I'll stripe it this way, and you can see from the percentage map down here that's 13.5 and 2.35. So when I add those numbers, I get 15.85%. Right, that's the kind of things we were doing the day when you were both here. And we took it a step further, and we said we can standardize this normal curve right here. We can standardize it by taking every point on it, subtracting the mean, and dividing by the standard deviation. And that's what we did down here. Let's talk about, before I reveal it, let's go back up here the very beginning here. And if I took, say, this part right here, and that is 304. And from 304 I subtract the mean, which is 304, and divide by the standard deviation. I get 304 minus 304 divided by 8, which is 0. So when we standardize, the mean is 0. Then 312 would be 312 minus 304, which is 8, divided by 8. And we get a 1 here. And perhaps you will realize if I go on down the row, the standard deviations look like this on the standardized normal curve. Right, let me move this paper. I can set up my tripod better. Sorry to mess you up all over. You're getting dizzy. If you're not sick now, you will be. Alright, so here is the standardized normal curve. And notice the standard deviations have switched to 0, 1, 2, 3, and -1, -2, -3. And that is true for every normal curve. If you start with a normal curve, the standardized normal curve is also normal. So let's look at some questions. I was wondering, and I'm sure you are as well, find the percentage of area under this curve less than 2.1. When I say 2.1, what I'm talking about there is a z-score. So that z-score is, these are now called not only standard deviations, but we call them z-scores. They have been standardized by this little formula right here. Anytime we take a value and subtract the mean and divide it by the standard deviation, we say that it is standardized. So these are z-scores, standardized scores, or standard deviations on a standardized normal curve. All ways of saying the same thing. Can you find the percent of area less than 2.1? We drew everything today, so 2.1 is a little greater than 2. So looking for the area less than that, we're looking for all this area. In order to find that, and this is still old information, we did this together when you were in class last, we went over to chart A in the back of the book, and we found a area, or part of it, where there was a 2 on the margin. And then we came across this margin, and then we came across the 0.1, and we read the little block that corresponded to 0.1, and we got 0.928, which corresponds to 98.21%, which makes sense because a lot of the curve was striped. Alright, now going from there, find the percent of the area more than 2.1. So going up here, this will be talking about the area under the curve that is not striped, that area to the right of the dark line. Well, we could look at, well, to do that, you look up the part, remember the chart always tells us what's less than the number in the chart. So 2.1, when I looked that up in the chart, the score it gave me is less than the 2.1. If I want greater than, you have to remember that the whole thing is 100%, so we just subtract out the 98.21%, and we find there's just a little bit of the chart left for above 2.1, and that was 1.79%. Alright, so nothing new so far. Let me see how much time I've talked about. Maybe 9 minutes, something like that. Alright, I gotta turn the page over, sorry. Alright, let's add some stuff to our day 4 notes. Now we're on new material. So adding this to day 4 notes, if you don't have day 4 notes, just take a piece of paper, take notes, and you can add that behind your day 4 notes in your notebook. I want you to find the z-score that corresponds to the 54th percentile. So here we're asking for a different kind of situation. So I'd say if this was a normal curve, we know that the middle is 50%, so that's about right there. I don't know if you can see what I wrote there. I tried to write 50% smushed in there. But we want the 54th percentile, so it's going to be a slight bit to the right of that. And I striped in, that's what we're looking for. We're drawing all of our problems and shading. So, sorry. So 54th percentile, how do we find that? If you noticed on this side of the paper, all the problems we talked about, I gave you a z-score and you gave me a percentage. Do you see that this is flop flipped? So when we flop flip over here, this time I'm giving you the percentage. Sorry, my camera won't fit on this little table I'm using. I'm not at home. So when I find this on this side, I'm giving you the percentage and you have to give me the z-score. So it's a flop flip. So put on your flip-flops and flop one over, because what we're going to do this time is we're going to look up 0.54 inside of the chart. So inside of the chart, find a value that's close as possible to 0.54. And 0.54, I just made this chart up. Perhaps there's a number on the chart that's close to 0.54, like 0.5399. Then you're going to get the z-score by reading the value over here in the margin and on the top margin, side margin and top margin. And this one actually came out to 0.1. So the z-score is 0.1. If you go back to the original, you'll see that makes sense. There's a little bit past, remember on the standard normal curve, this is standardized normal curve, that's 0. So 54, and down here is 1. So a little bit past the 50% mark would be about 0.1. So it should make sense to you. The next section, I'm just going to show you the homework answers that were due today. So I think they all fit in the screen. We had number 47, 49, and 51. Those were practicing the skills that you just saw me do. Alright, I'm going to shut down the video for part 1 and start part 2, and be right back.